In 2026, 39 scientists published one paper that destroyed a theory used by 500,000 therapists. The theory has a name: Polyvagal Theory. If you have ever been told your vagus nerve is dysregulated, that you are stuck in fight, flight, or freeze, that your nervous system needs to feel safe before you can heal, you have been inside Polyvagal Theory. It is the dominant explanation in trauma therapy today. It is in your therapist training. It is in the somatic exercises on your phone. It is in the breathwork app you opened last night. And in 2026, a coalition of neuroscientists called its core anatomical claim simply false. So here's the question that should keep you watching. If the theory is wrong, why is your body still calming down when you do the work? 60 seconds for each architect. Then the takedown. Then what survives. Stay to the end. Stephen Porges, 1994 presidential address to the Society for Psychophysiology. He proposed something that would change clinical psychology for a generation. The vagus nerve, he said, is not one nerve. It is two evolutionarily layered systems. An ancient, unmyelinated dorsal branch that shuts you down when threat is overwhelming, and a newer, myelinated ventral branch, found only in mammals, that lets you feel safe in another person's presence. He called it the polyvagal theory. 3 states stacked like floors of a building. Ventral safety on top, sympathetic mobilization in the middle, dorsal shutdown in the basement. Trauma, he argued, locks you in the lower floors. Healing climbs you back up. It was elegant. It was teachable. It gave clinicians a map of the body where before there had been only metaphor. Within 20 years, it would be everywhere. Paul MacLean, neuroscientist at the National Institute of Mental Health, spent the 1960s building an idea that would shape how millions of people understand themselves. He called it the triune brain. 3 brains in one skull, layered by evolution. A reptilian core handling survival reflexes. A paleomammalian limbic system handling emotion. And a neomammalian cortex handling thought, language, and choice. Trauma, in this picture, was a hijack. The reptile took the wheel. The thinking brain went offline. MacLean's model was beautiful and easy to draw. It moved into self-help books, leadership trainings, and eventually into the foundation of modern trauma theory. Polyvagal theory inherited its logic. Older, deeper structures override newer ones under threat. Modern neuroscience has retired the triune brain, but its story still runs the room. Most of what you have been told about your reptile brain is a 60-year-old metaphor that science has already moved past. Peter Levine, 1997, published Waking the Tiger. He had spent decades watching wild animals survive predator attacks and noticed something his clinical training could not explain. After the chase ended, the animals shook. They trembled, ran in place, breathed hard, and then walked away. Humans, Levine argued, almost never finish the cycle. We freeze, we hold, we move on without discharging. The undischarged survival energy stays trapped in the body. Years later, it reappears as anxiety, chronic pain, panic, autoimmune flare, the relationship that ends in collapse. He built a method called somatic experiencing. Slow titrated attention to body sensation, letting the trembling finish what the original moment could not. When polyvagal theory arrived, Levine's method finally had a neuroanatomical explanation. The trembling was the body climbing back up the polyvagal ladder. Levine's clinical observations were real. The map he was handed in the 90s is the one now under attack. Bessel von der Kolk, Boston, 2014. He had spent 40 years treating combat veterans, abused children, and survivors of catastrophe, and noticed that talk therapy alone, for many of them, did almost nothing. He published a book called The Body Keeps the Score. It would sit on the New York Times bestseller list for more than 250 weeks. His central claim was simple. Trauma is not a memory of an event. It is a present tense imprint in the nervous system. The autonomic body still believes the danger is now. Healing, therefore, has to reach the body, not just the story. yoga, breath, EMDR, drumming, theater, touch. Polyvagal Theory gave the book its physiological backbone. Van der Kolk turned PVT into a household phrase, and a generation learned to think of themselves as a nervous system to be regulated. Whatever survives the 2026 critique, this book changed how trauma is understood, perhaps forever. Pat Ogden, founder of Sensorimotor Psychotherapy, 2006. She had trained under Ron Kurtz in the Hakomi method and spent 3 decades watching trauma clients describe the worst day of their lives while their bodies, beneath the words, were already doing something else. A hand was lifting in protection that had never finished. A leg was bracing for a run that had never happened. A spine was collapsing toward a posture of submission 30 years after the moment that asked for it. She built a method around a deceptively simple idea. The body's incomplete movements are the trauma. Finish them slowly, with attention, and the story changes. When polyvagal theory arrived, her clinical lineage had its physiology. Sensorimotor practitioners taught polyvagal language to thousands. Whether the vagus map is right or wrong, the observation Ogden built her method on is one any practitioner can verify in a single session. Debunked, 2018, published The Polyvagal Theory in Therapy. She did something nobody else had done. She translated Porges out of academic neuroanatomy and into language a working therapist could use on a Tuesday afternoon. Ventral, sympathetic, dorsal, safe, mobilized, shut down. She gave clients a worksheet called the Polyvagal Ladder and asked them every day to notice which rung they were on. She built a follow-up book called Rhythm of Regulation, and a generation of clinicians started teaching nervous system literacy as a foundational skill. Within a few years, polyvagal language was everywhere. On Instagram, in couples therapy, in leadership coaching, in the exhausted message your therapist sent you last week. 500,000 practitioners have now been trained in it. That shared vocabulary may turn out to be PVT's most lasting gift. Even after the anatomy beneath, it is rewritten. Allan Schore, UCLA, 1994. His book Affect Regulation and the Origin of the Self ran almost 700 pages. Inside, he gathered evidence from neuroscience, attachment research, and developmental psychology to argue something quietly radical. The infant brain is not built alone. It is co-built in the right hemisphere by thousands of micro-moments of attunement between the baby's nervous system and the caregivers. Eye gaze, vocal tone, breath rhythm, touch. When attunement is consistent, the right brain learns that arousal can rise, peak, and come back down. When attunement fails, that capacity stays underbuilt. The adult, decades later, struggles to self-regulate alone. Shore's developmental neuroscience gave polyvagal theory its early life backbone. It explained why a calm therapist's voice could regulate an adult's nervous system at all. Whatever happens to PVT, the infant brain still asks for the same thing. Another nervous system, present, calm, and willing to stay. Paul Grossman, psychophysiologist, spent the last decade examining the comparative neuroanatomy that polyvagal theory rests on. In 2026, he led a coalition of 39 scientists. Their paper made a clean, devastating argument. The two vagus story is wrong. There is no anatomical evidence that the ventral myelinated branch is uniquely mammalian. Reptiles have myelinated vagal fibers too. The proposed evolutionary timeline does not match the data. And the specific physiological signature that PVT uses to read your nervous system state does not behave the way the theory predicts. Grossman was not careless. He has known and respectfully critiqued Stephen Porges for years. His paper does not say therapists are frauds. It says the neuroanatomical scaffolding that everyone has been quoting is not real. What clinicians do still helps people, but the explanation they have been giving for why it helps is not the actual explanation. The next move belongs to the field. 8 architects. 1 critique. 1 question. If the Vegas map is wrong, why are people getting better? Because the interventions were never the theory. Slow breathing still slows the heart. A safe person still calms a panicked body. Trembling still discharges what was held. Attuned eye contact still teaches an underbuilt nervous system that arousal can rise and come back down. What the 2026 critique kills is not the practice. It is the explanation. Polyvagal theory may be remembered as a provisional bridge that carried clinicians into bodywork while the real neuroscience was being written. Bridges get rebuilt. The crossing was real. If you have ever sat with a calm person and felt your shoulders drop, if you have finished the cry that needed to finish, if you have come back into your body after years away, you already know the part of this that survives. The mechanism is uncertain. The healing is not.